Okay, buckle up, Reddit. This is a wild one. My name is Carl Sweets, and I'm a lieutenant with the local PD. You might have guessed from the title, but yeah, I had a Karen incident. But trust me, this wasn't your run-of-the-mill entitled neighbor situation. This one had layers, like a racist onion, and it ended in a way I never could have predicted. It all started about 6 months ago when I finally scraped together enough for a little slice of heaven, a 5-acre plot on the outskirts of town. It was mostly wooded, but with a perfect clearing for a house, a garden, and maybe even a small barn down the line. I was beyond excited. After years of living in cramped apartments, I was finally building my own space, my own sanctuary. I closed on the land, got the survey done, and started making plans. I even put up some simple fencing to mark the boundaries while I saved up for something more permanent. That's when she entered the picture, Lucy Clemens, the HOA president from the nearby upscale neighborhood. I first encountered Lucy while I was putting up the fencing. A gleaming white SUV pulled up, and out stepped Lucy, perfectly coiffed blonde hair, designer sunglasses, and a face that looked like she'd just swallowed a lemon. "Excuse me," she said, her voice dripping with condescension, "are you aware that this land is subject to the Pleasant Valley Estates HOA? I politely explained that I was the owner, showed her my deed, and told her I wasn't part of their HOA as my land was outside their boundaries. She scoffed, "That's impossible. All land in this area is under our jurisdiction. You need to cease this construction immediately. We have rules about fencing, you know. It must be wrought iron, no less than 4 feet high, and painted a specific shade of, well, never mind. Just take it down." I held my ground, explaining again that I was within my rights. She huffed, took a picture of my license plate, and told me I'd be hearing from her lawyer. I rolled my eyes and went back to work, figuring it was just a minor annoyance. Boy, was I wrong. Over the next few months, Lucy harassed me constantly. She'd drive by my land, yelling about property values and the eyesore I was creating. She sent me letters filled with legal jargon that, upon review by my actual lawyer, turned out to be entirely baseless. She even tried to get the county to issue me violation notices, but because my land was zoned correctly and I was following all the regulations, nothing stuck. It was clear this wasn't about the fence, it was about me. I was a black man building a home near her pristine, predominantly white neighborhood, and she couldn't stand it. I tried to ignore her, to focus on my plans, but her constant presence was a dark cloud hanging over my dream. I started documenting everything, just in case. I even installed security cameras, which, in hindsight, was the best decision I ever made. The real fireworks started a few weeks ago. I was on my land, clearing some brush, when Lucy drove up, practically spitting with rage. This time, though, something was different. She wasn't just annoyed, she was absolutely unhinged. "You," she shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at me. "You did this. You somehow blocked my access to my account to pay my HOA dues." I stared at her, bewildered. "What are you talking about, Lucy? I have nothing to do with your HOA dues." She launched into a tirade, accusing me of hacking her account, of conspiring with the HOA board, apparently, they'd recently had a falling out, and of generally trying to ruin her life. I calmly told her to leave, that she was trespassing. That's when she lost it completely. "This is my land too, you thug," she screamed, her face turning red. "I pay taxes here. I have a right to be here. You're just jealous because you'll never be as successful as me. You think you can just come in here and take over? This is a respectable neighborhood, and we don't want your kind here." I was stunned. I'd heard racist garbage before, but the sheer vitriol in her voice was shocking. I told her to leave again, that I was calling the police. That's when she pulled out her phone. But she didn't call the police. Instead, she dialed 911. "I'm being harassed," she wailed into the phone. A black man is on my property, refusing to leave. He's threatening me. I'm afraid for my safety. I need an officer here immediately. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was using the color of my skin to weaponize the police, to paint me as a threat. I felt a surge of anger, but I knew I had to stay calm. I activated the security camera on my phone and started recording everything. I could feel my blood pressure rising, but I focused on documenting the situation. As I waited for the police, Lucy continued her rant, pacing back and forth and spouting increasingly absurd accusations. She ranted about how I was devaluing her property, how I was probably a drug dealer, and how she was going to make sure I regretted ever setting foot in her neighborhood. She even started filming me with her own phone, yelling about evidence and discrimination. I just stood there, silent, refusing to engage. I knew anything I said would be twisted and used against me. Meanwhile, my security camera was capturing every word, every gesture, every venomous look. I knew this recording would be crucial. The police arrived, sirens wailing, lights flashing. 2 officers, both white, approached us cautiously. I immediately identified myself as a lieutenant with the local PD and explained the situation, calmly handing them my identification and the deed to the property. Lucy, meanwhile, was hysterically telling the officers that I was a dangerous criminal, that I had no right to be there, and that they needed to arrest me immediately. The officers, to their credit, listened to both sides of the story. They ran my name and confirmed my employment with the police department. They also checked the deed and confirmed that I was, indeed, the owner of the land. Then, one of the officers turned to Lucy. "Ma'am," he said, "according to this deed, Mr. Sweets is the legal owner of this property. You are trespassing. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Lucy's face crumpled. But I pay taxes here. I have a right to be here." The officer calmly explained that paying taxes didn't necessarily mean she owned the land. He asked her for proof of ownership, a deed or a tax bill with her name on it. She fumbled through her purse, pulling out a stack of papers. None of them showed any ownership of the land. The officer sighed. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. If you refuse, I will have to arrest you for trespassing." Lucy refused to leave, insisting that there was some mistake, that she had a right to be there. The officers, after several warnings, placed her under arrest for trespassing. As they were handcuffing her, she started screaming about racism, about how she was being unfairly targeted because she was white. It was a truly pathetic display. As they led her to the patrol car, she glared at me, her eyes filled with hatred. "This isn't over," she hissed. "I'll get you for this." I just shook my head, feeling a mixture of relief and disgust. The whole situation was surreal. After the police left with Lucy, I reviewed the footage from my security camera. It was even more damning than I thought. Her racist rant was crystal clear, her false accusations undeniable. I knew I had to do something with this evidence. I contacted my lawyer and filed a formal complaint with the police department against Lucy for filing a false police report and for harassment. I also sent the video to the local news. I knew it would cause a stir, but I felt like it was important to expose her behavior. I wanted people to see what I had to deal with, to understand the kind of prejudice that still exists. The news story went viral almost instantly. People were outraged by Lucy's behavior. The HOA board, already unhappy with her leadership, held an emergency meeting and voted to remove her as president. Her employer, a high-end real estate firm, fired her the same day, citing a violation of their code of conduct. It felt like a small victory, but I knew the damage was done. Lucy's words had left a mark, a reminder of the racism that still lurks beneath the surface. But I was determined not to let her win. I was going to build my dream home on that land, and I was going to do it with my head held high. But the story doesn't end there. Remember how Lucy was so sure she had a right to be on my land, even though she couldn't produce any proof. Well, a few days after the news story broke, I received a call from a lawyer. He explained that he was representing the actual owner of the house Lucy had been living in for the past 5 years. Apparently, Lucy had been renting the property from an elderly woman who had recently passed away. The woman's will stipulated that the house be sold, and the proceeds divided among her grandchildren. The lawyer had been trying to contact Lucy for weeks, but she had ignored his calls. When he saw the news story, he realized who she was and decided to investigate further. It turned out that Lucy had never signed a lease renewal after the original lease expired 5 years ago. She had simply continued to live in the house, paying the rent into the deceased woman's account. Because of this, she was technically squatting on the property. The lawyer informed me that they were initiating eviction proceedings and that Lucy had 30 days to vacate the premises. I was floored. Not only was she a racist harasser, but she was also living in a house she didn't own. It was almost too much to believe. I didn't feel any joy or satisfaction in Lucy's misfortune. I honestly just felt pity. To see someone who had been so arrogant and entitled reduced to this was sobering. A few weeks later, I saw a news report about a homeless woman who had been arrested for trespassing in a park. The woman's description matched Lucy perfectly. I watched the report with a heavy heart, feeling a pang of sadness for someone who had brought so much misery upon herself. I never wanted this for her. I haven't seen or heard from Lucy since. I hope she gets the help she needs. As for me, I'm finally starting to build my house. The foundation is laid, the walls are going up, and I can finally see my dream taking shape. The community, initially hesitant, has been incredibly supportive. My neighbors have brought over food, offered to help with construction, and even organized a fundraiser to help me with the finishing touches. It's been a long and difficult journey, but I've learned a lot about myself, about prejudice, and about the power of community. I'm grateful for the support I've received, and I'm determined to make my home a place of peace, acceptance, and love. The experience with Lucy Clemens will always be a part of my story, a reminder of the challenges I've overcome. But it will also be a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit, the importance of standing up for what's right, and the enduring power of hope. And maybe, just maybe, this whole mess will serve as a cautionary tale for other Karens out there. Racism and hate never win in the end. Treat others with respect, and you might just avoid ending up jobless and homeless.